Welcome to the Soul Grit Podcast. I'm Ann Taylor McNeese, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I also love Jesus, and I'm passionate about all things gospel and therapy. I created Soul Grit to be at the intersection of mental health and Christian faith. Christ followers need a place to ask questions and get answers about mental health. Join me as we dive into real stories and real questions from people who want to honor God with their hearts, souls, and minds. Hi, welcome back to the Soul Grit Podcast. This is Anne. I'm here today with Tiffany Lynn Hernandez. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Tiffany and I connected through a Facebook group for podcasters, and I invited her on the show because she is a podcaster. She hosts a podcast about homeschool, and she's a homeschool mom of 3, and she's also coaching other families on how to do the homeschool process. But we are not talking about homeschool today, as interesting as it is. We are actually talking about what happens when you get diagnosed with ADHD and you're already a full-on grown-up.
Yes.
Yeah. So Tiffany is going to share a little bit about her experience of what it was like growing up and then not having the diagnosis, but then realizing in adulthood as a mom, as a business owner, as a nonprofit director, like how do you deal with this when a lot of people didn't even think this was real? Like if I look in the DSM-5 right now, like ADHD is under that category of disorders that are diagnosed in childhood, right? And so sometimes it's even hard to get a diagnosis as an adult. And then you have all these questions about how does this impact my parenting, my marriage, my business, my ability to earn income, my ability to keep my house, my ability to do ministry, because we are all believers here. So then you have questions like, should I be taking medicine and what will that change about me? So we're going to talk about all those things today. So Tiffany, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and those things.
Awesome. Well, yes. So I really didn't know that I had ADHD. Like you said, I'm really much a late diagnosis in my adulthood, finding out, oh, you really have a real problem, which honestly, like the validation to say, yes, this is a real thing and you're not weird and you're not broken and there's nothing wrong with you per se. In that sense, like you have a legitimate cause. That was freeing. It was very much like, oh, I can do all of these things because of this. It's like a superpower, but then I also have all these other issues that come along with it. So growing up, for instance, I was very OCD. I had all my things lined up. People could only play with my toys in a very specific way. And I was very bossy. I was an only child as well. So that probably didn't help. I was always making sure I had anxiety over making sure that I got all the letter grades, A+, all this. I was the teacher's pet, and I wanted that validation that like I'm a good student. And I found a lot of my worth in what I did. Like I was valued for performance. And so that's how I saw in my brain, like, okay, I'm a good person if I can perform this way. But as I've gotten older and the workload got heavier, it was harder to say, okay, I cannot put all of my worth and my value in my performance because now I'm not able to mask as much and I'm struggling with this. And it did impact my job. Just like fast forwarding, I knew what I wanted to do when I was in 7th grade. I wanted to go for architecture, but then I learned that I'm not good in math. So I'm like, what's the next best thing? It's interior design. So then I went into interior design, went all the way through college, finagled my way through school because I knew there was some things missing, but I always was like, okay, I have to find a workaround. So I was a very determined individual, but coming out of that, going into, a business and getting into real world with a family, mind you, because I had started a family young, fresh out of college. We got married, had my first child, and then my second child. And then I'm like still working on getting my design career. And I couldn't manage it all. and I didn't know what was wrong. And I felt so much of my worth and my value just plummet because I couldn't perform at home, be an at home, superstar and an at work superstar. I had to pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything came crashing down. I ended up having a mold toxicity on top of that.
Oh.
So ended up with panic attacks and just didn't know what was wrong, anxiety through the roof. Loan to find out mold really causes a lot of that. So
Yeah.
I was able to detox from some of it, but then I really felt God was like, you just need to homeschool your kids and stay at home because this is not, even though that's maybe what you thought you wanted to do with your life, I have a better plan for you. So we're going to like come out of that, come into this. And that's when I started my nonprofit and we started homeschooling, doing homeschooling co-ops. And I've now gone into my own industry.
Mm-hmm. So back then when everything was like falling apart, I'm sure you just thought you weren't good at it or you were flawed or something was wrong with you. Why couldn't you
Yeah.
hold it all together?
Yes. There was a lot of mental hula hooping that I was doing because of course my husband did not understand and neither really did my family. They're like, you just are doing too many things and you need to stop, which is a trait of ADHD, like bouncing all over the place and having a million things and then being creative on top of that and wanting to, conquer the world overnight doesn't happen. But um, it was really hard because I didn't want to go to a counselor. I didn't want to go and get help because then that said that I was broken and I prided myself on I'm not broken. I'm fine. I can handle this when really, no, you couldn't handle it. Probably should have gone way back then and got diagnosed then, but I didn't know what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of should I even be here? Am I worthy enough to even be alive? That kind of stuff. Not
Yeah.
that I was ever going to do anything about it, but it was still the enemy was planting so many negative thoughts in my head. I had so much to overcome just on a mental state that I didn't realize was all connected to the ADHD.
Mm-hmm. What started happening? Like, I'm guessing we're probably close to the same age, or maybe you might be a little bit younger than me. But what started happening when you thought, well, there's something going on here, and I got to figure out what it is?
Right. So once we moved to Tennessee, so I lived in Florida, moved to Tennessee. We moved on to the property with my parents, and I was starting to heal from all the mold
Mm-hmm.
and finally starting to really digest everything and process everything after I quit my job and I started getting my health under control. That then I'm like, I went on this journey of self discovery, just like, I need to figure out the root cause of really what is causing me to have all these issues. Is it my health? Is it, my mindset? And so I started learning all of these things about childhood traumas and just experiences and how that's affected me being a parent, PTSD from that. And just dealing with all these things to where I'm like, I've got to figure out what the issue is. And I knew there was something, but I really couldn't put my finger on it until I had somebody, well, a really good friend of mine who's now a business partner, say and share with me, like, did you ever think that maybe you have ADHD because you're showing a lot of signs? Because it came about because I was talking to her about my kids. Can we figure out what's wrong with my kids? I knew something was wrong. Nobody wanted to believe me. My husband was like, you're just trying to diagnose them with whatever you can. And I said, no, there is literally, I know there is something. There is something here. I cannot put my finger on it. But then when she started to say, well, a lot of times it's genetic, there's more than just the child. It usually falls from the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And so once I realized that, then there was like a grieving process of grieving the life that I lived, thinking I was fine and being like, wow, I could have gotten so much help. And how could I have helped my life, in the process of getting to the point where I'm at now, if I would have known. And so there's a lot of that that's still going on where I'm grieving the life that I had and that I now have and trying to manage all of that. But once I figured out like, oh, this is real. This is validating. I'm so relieved that I can now say I have ADHD and it's okay. And it's not like it gives you that excuse, but it's almost like, okay, now I just have to learn to work with my brain and know that it's a superpower, but it also has, some negative tendencies towards it, but it doesn't have to be bad. You can learn to work with it.
Mhm. So tell me, like, as an adult woman, as a mom, a wife, what were some of the things that you saw happening in your life that now you're like, oh, that's ADHD?
My overstimulation with my kids,
Hmm.
hands down, is, and like my triggers of they've got some oppositional defiance, specifically with mom because I'm the closest to them. And I also have very high expectations of everyone and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's an ADHD problem. I also have task avoidance really bad. So I procrastinate, and then the last minute I get it all done, which is what I did my whole life, getting
Cool.
papers done for school the morning of and then getting an A+ on it. And I'm like, see, this is why bother taking 5 weeks to get this done when I can get it done in a night and stress over it for 24 hours and then get an A+.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of that still happens, but I'm having to now really pay attention to my time blindness, pay attention to my task initiation issues, and like, okay, I know that I don't like this task, so let me give myself ample amount of time to get it done.
Hmm.
And learning like, oh, that procrastination is really an adrenaline junkie problem, so how can we start eliminating that ahead of time?
So let me just do some, because I'm the therapist here. So let me just do some of the breakdown of some of the terms that you use, because I'm just going to assume like
Yeah,
some people
sorry.
know some things about ADHD, but there might be people who don't. So all of the things that you mentioned outside of maybe the sensory part, so the overstimulation with your kids, the noise, the touching, the gooiness of having children, like these are all
Yes.
sensory things, which for a lot of people with any kind of neurodivergence like ADHD, having those inputs coming in all the time, you can hit a limit and then it feels like intense anxiety, like you just want to close everything out, you want to scream at somebody, or like,
Yep.
I don't know what your particular response is, but it's like your
Yeah.
nervous system cannot take one more touch, one more sound, one more
Yeah.
bright light, one more. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the overstimulation part. And then the other parts that you were mentioning were mostly executive functioning. And
Yes.
so for people who may or may not know this term, executive functioning refers to something that happens in the frontal lobe of your brain. It's how you organize yourself and get yourself going. And so for the neurotypical person with an average brain is going to be able to start tasks, stay on task, and finish tasks because your brain is telling you this is what you need to do. But for somebody who has ADHD or maybe just a different kind of brain, starting a task is going to feel like a huge barrier. Staying focused while you're on the task is going to be a second huge barrier.
Yes.
And then not stopping before it's completed, like actually bringing it to completion, is going to be another barrier. And so all of these things are lined up where people with neurotypical brains are just going about their like, yeah, it sucks. I have to do this thing for work, but I'm just going to get it done. Whereas an ADHD brain, like you said, might use procrastination as a tool. I'm just going to wait, and then cram and then hope I get good results. And
Yes.
for somebody that's really bright like you are, that works because you could still get an A+, so you could still pull off the thing. For somebody who maybe doesn't have that level of intelligence, that's going to have a disaster. And even for
Right.
somebody who's really smart like you're going to also have some repercussions in your body, like from the high stress, low stress, high stress, low stress. And
Yeah.
just like we tell our kids, like, put your coat on. You don't want to be having like cold weather, warm heater, cold weather, warm heater. You're going to get a cold. Like, same thing is going to happen to your body when you're going through these stressful moments. So.
Yes. 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 That is exactly. I have, and of course, my my parents were like, "You're always so stressed. Like, you need to really. You're gonna have. some health issues from that. I'm like, yes, I know, but it's literally unavoidable at some point. And so then the medication component comes up. And I have gotten myself a counselor, and that has helped with a little bit of dealing with things. But what I also didn't realize was that I have a problem articulating my communication
Mm.
and really saying what I need and speaking out and advocating for myself has been a huge issue. I've struggled with people pleasing my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And it really wasn't until this past year, talking with my behavioral analyst partner, that, she's like, you need to say this, or like, maybe this is what's happening. And it's like that validating of, hey, I see where you're coming from. I understand actually what you're saying. And that is really a big problem. And I can see why you're exploding, because the yelling and the screaming, that is, my overstimulation goes into outrage mode because I just can't take one more thing. But it's also because I couldn't communicate
Mm-hmm.
what I needed or what I was trying to say to certain, either family or whatever. I could hold it together I could mask, for people a lot better than I can for my family. Like, I have zero tolerance. And I feel bad about that. Like, it's a guilt, it's that mom guilt.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm like, okay, I can now start to say, I see where the struggle is. I see where the gap is. And now, because I understand what I'm dealing with, I can start advocating for myself and say, this is why I'm feeling like this. And this is how it transpires, and why I start outraging, and why I'm getting upset over, X, Y, and Z problem.
Now, you just used another term that I want to make sure that people understand. You said masking, and I know what that is because I live with neurodivergent people in my house, but can you give us your definition of what is masking?
I would say masking is really just status quo for society, what
Mm.
society is expecting, and what we've grown up as proper communication skills, what you learned just communicating and interacting with other individuals, and knowing what is expected versus what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a good, I like that last phrase because like you're out in public, right? Or you're in your job or you're at church or you're doing whatever around other people, and you have to put on this mask of I'm a normal person. I don't
Yes.
do weird stuff. I don't have weird urges. I don't have to do this thing that's going to make my anxiety go down. Like you're putting the mask on just to appear normal, to do, like you said, society's status quo, to make other people feel comfortable around you. But while you're doing it, you're making your internal world less and less comfortable. So
Yes.
when you get home and you can stop masking, you take the mask off, then all the weirdness that you've been holding on to for however long that interaction was just gets spilled out over your family members, pretty much.
Yes. Yes. And
Exhausting.
right. So then I'm coming home and I'm exhausted because I've been doing all the things that I know I need to do. But then in reality, it's like, I don't have patience for this. I don't have tolerance for that. I don't want to deal with these, children problems, or like just family problems, or just whatever it is,
Yeah.
And so that's where I've really struggled to balance the work life and the social and the antisocial life, because I'm very much an extrovert. I love being with people all the time. But then when I come home, it's like, okay, how do I decompress from that? Because I really don't recognize, and this is still something I'm working on, I don't recognize that I need to take some decompression time to unwind from all of that, so that I don't blow up on my own family.
Right. Right. Um, in our family, like I've told listeners before, I have two neurodivergent people in my family, and a lot of times it is, well, one cares more about this than the other. One doesn't mask very much. So the one that masks, she will say, like, like I'm so exhausted from masking all day, and it will just be fall to pieces at home. And because I'm the safe person, I'm usually the one that gets the bum end of the stick, is what I say.
Right.
You know.
Right. And being the mom, that's what happens. So I have
Mhm.
two neurodivergent kids who also struggle with all of this. My 11-year-old right now, she's struggling with making friends. And I've tried to explain to her, now knowing what I know, struggling with friends when I was her age, I'm like, listen, they are not going to understand you this way. It's okay that you don't like this or you want it to be a certain way. But when she comes home, then I get the brunt of that masking from
Mhm.
all day.
Mhm. Yeah, that can be really exhausting.
Yeah.
And um, so you mentioned medication. Is that something that you have considered or you're using medication?
I have been told I need to go on medication. Um, I had a family member tell me that I need to get anxiety medication because I had high anxiety, but it's like, it's not anxiety. It's ADHD ridden anxiety. And I've been told by other physicians, like, oh, you're just depressed. You just need to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no, I am not depressed. It's another mask. It's another like other pseudo symptom. And so I've considered it, but I'm really a holistic person. I do a lot of natural remedies anyways. And I already have a hypochondriac issue with taking medicine. And so I'm like, is this going to help if I'm already stressed out about taking this to begin with?
Mhm.
And so I've looked into it, but I haven't actually taken any medicine other than I've taken GABA. I've done some L-theanine, lemon balm, more natural approach. And that does help when I'm getting to like, okay, I'm really overstimulated. I'm going into a panic attack and I need to just calm my nervous system down. And
Okay.
that is usually where I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. And I can talk myself out of it, do a whole lot of mindset.
Mhm.
Sometimes I end up disassociating from the world and like scrolling my Facebook, just to like have a minute. And I get yelled at because I'm like, you're on your phone all the time. I'm like, well, I'm actually working, but you guys don't know what I'm doing. So you think I'm just being a bum. But um the the medicine element of it, I'm like, well, I've heard it helps people. I'm if I really feel like I cannot manage this and I'm still in the learning phase. So I'm like, let me learn a little bit more
Mhm.
and see if I can come up with some ways to manage better so that way I don't have to do the medicine if I don't need to.
Okay. So you mentioned three different supplements that you're taking.
Yeah.
I just want to put out the caveat there that we're not doctors and
No,
we can't give you any kind of medical advice on
no.
this podcast. But there are several different supplements that you can buy over the counter that are proven to help with some of the functioning. Some will help more with the anxiety piece, some will help more with the focus piece, some will help with the attention. So if you're listening to this, you can talk to your doctor about some of those options and also do some of the research for
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
So you feel like those three that you mentioned, they're helping some?
They help some. Yes. I wouldn't say it takes everything off, but I will say when I'm like in that high cortisol, high stress, it does help to alleviate some
Okay.
of it and take that edge off. But it's not a cure all. I think that the other thing that I'm still struggling with is really finding that wind down time and the quiet time to just spend with my thoughts. And I just heard a podcast the other day about boredom being painful for ADHD individuals.
Yeah.
And I can totally relate to that. Very much so. It is painful to be in that boredom or like not doing anything, which
Hmm.
is why it looks like I'm constantly busy and I'm overworking myself, but being out of doing anything, just sitting, I just
It
can't
hurts your brain.
fathom. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the things that you've tried for kind of filling in, not be bored?
Yeah, so I would say, because I have so many different things going on and my ADHD, it's really helped to keep me busy without lashing out at my kids or getting, because I can also get OCD about certain tasks or topics or subjects, right? And so being able to bounce back and forth from my podcast to my homeschool co-op to my clients, like it gives my brain that exercise that it needs. And when I'm taking a break from one thing and working on the other, like that is my break. I know people are like, that's not a break, you're still working. I'm like, yes, but I'm not taxing my brain too much because it's something that I enjoy doing. Like for example, I have homeschool co-ops that I do nature activities for, and I love learning about nature. So it's like win-win for me because then I get to geek out on finding all this cool stuff about nature. And that's fun for me. That's like relaxing. Even
Mhm.
though I'm doing it for my job,
Mhm.
I see that as like this is a fun, quiet time for me, and I'm not
Mhm.
stressing out.
Mhm. Well, I've heard you mention a couple of times like OCD. I'm not sure if you're using that as like an adjective or if that's really been a diagnosis for you.
Yeah, so with behavioral friend that I have, there is the just right OCD, the perfectionism OCD. I struggle with those things and I have struggled with them for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so getting things just right is a big issue for me, which
Mhm.
is why I almost look like I work over hard. And it was really hard for me to have a career with my interior design because it had to be just right. Now my boss, my senior designers, they were like, "Wow, you're amazing. This is great." I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't realize how much extra time I spent into the night making sure,
Mhm.
triple checking that it was just right."
Yeah.
And so my mental health struggled a lot with that. And so now I'm able to really release a lot of that. And I've had to learn to just let things be. And that has been really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, OCD can be classified as another kind of neurodivergence. So, we see like autism spectrum. It's like this line. People can't see my hands. I'm using my hands to talk now, guys. But there's this line of like autism spectrum from like how you're functioning and what kinds of things that you're able to do and not able to do. And then we have like this other line that is the ADHD line. And then there's another line that's like the OCD line. And they're all just different ways of your brain functioning. And we can say there's some really good things that you can accomplish because your brain does this. And then
Yes.
there's also some liabilities that you have to work around because it can make you dysfunctional in some ways and it can make it very painful for you in some ways. So you had mentioned like some of the things about ADHD you feel like are a superpower. So tell us what your superpowers are.
I would say I can problem solve like nobody can. I've been told, oh, wow, that's a really good idea. Or wow, I've never thought of it like that. Or wow, I didn't look at it like that. And so, that's how I've really been able to help in the coaching consulting area that I help with. But at the same time, there's some other great things like space planning and just being creative, thinking outside the box on just visualizing and branding and marketing colors, all these things that are very much under the creative realm. Thinking outside the box is sometimes to me, I'm like, this makes sense, or this seems so easy. And other people are thinking this is not easy. And I would have never thought of that like that. So I can see where it's a benefit. I, there's so many things I don't know, but I also would say that sometimes it's it's a superpower, but it's not a superpower because then I'm literally juggling a million things all the time, and my brain is so full that I forget.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. You mentioned that some of your kids are struggling with some stuff too. What are some superpowers you see in your kids?
Yeah, so my daughter is really good at remembering things from years and years ago. She's actually really talented musically.
Mm.
She picked up the violin at 6. Now she hates it. It's kind of, which I quit piano when I was around her age, so I understand why. But now I'm like, man, I wish I would have
Yeah.
stayed with the music.
Mhm.
She can play several different instruments
Mm.
and she picks it up, and it's almost like because it's so easy for her now, she doesn't want to do it because it's
Mm.
not a challenge enough.
Mhm.
And then with my son, he loves reading. He like remembers crazy things out of random books. And it's like, hey, did you know blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, no, I didn't, bud. Where'd you find that? Oh, it was in this book. Like, just remembering things randomly. So they have a lot of really good qualities that I can see. And so my 11-year-old, she's also very artistic. She's now starting to draw and paint, and just building her confidence with that has been a challenge because she also has the rejection sensitivity of this isn't good enough. I'm not good enough. Nobody likes me. We're dealing with that right now, but I just have to keep telling her and reassuring her, even though we struggle with this, because mom struggles with this too, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make your stuff bad
Mhm.
or worse than somebody else's.
Mhm. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about your parenting and your work life. So let's talk a little bit about marriage. You mentioned that your husband doesn't always seem to see like why this is a problem or what's really going on with you or with the kids, which is a legitimate standpoint, He doesn't see it the same way. So tell us how that's impacted your marriage and then also how you guys are overcoming that.
Right. So I think a lot of it has been just advocacy and continuously bringing things up, speaking about them, saying, hey, I know you don't want to see it like this. However, this is what they're struggling with. This is what they're, needing to do. I think a lot of it is because he just is like, I don't know how to help. I don't know how to fix it. And so because I can't fix it, I'm going to just ignore it. Um, and he's a firefighter. He's a first responder. And so he really enjoys that because that's something that he could fix. Like I could put the fires out, real life fires, but I can't put the fires out at my house. So I'm just going to ignore it. It doesn't happen. Um, which I've talked with him about this. I'm like, okay, but if you know that your kids need this, I don't know all of the things to tell you how to fix it. And some of it just can't be fixed. It's more of like, how do we at least acknowledge it
Mhm.
and let it be and accept the fact that this is what we're dealing with? Because
Mhm.
for many years, it's like, you're crazy and you are outraging on everybody all the time and you're doing too many things. It's like, okay, but then you want me to not be a person? I can't do that either. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not allowed to be me, and that's not fair.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of just misrepresentation of who I was. And so there was a lot of fights over a lot of years over these things. But I think now it's been a while. We've been married for about 11 years. It'll be 12 years this year. And I think he's also come to realize like, I can't change her. And I've come to realize too, like, I can't change him. He has to do what he has to do. He's made a choice to do this hobby or career change. And I have to let him do that. And I'm over here doing my thing. Now, my thing includes my kids, which is why I'm like, I knew God wanted me to do this was because, hey, your husband's going to want to be a first responder, and that requires him to be gone unusual hours all the time, And so coming up with that, the answer to what have we done to solve it, there has been some conversations now because I know what it is that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
There's validity to what I'm saying. And
Mhm.
so I sent him things. I sent him information like, hey, this is me. This is how my brain works. If you really want to figure out, there is solutions, there is answers, but then like, I need your support to say, okay, I see where this is a problem, and let's see how we can at least manage it. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm just asking you to accept the fact that this is who I am and this is who your kids are. And so there's been a lot of just coming to understanding,
Mhm.
that we need to at least acknowledge it.
Yeah. Sounds like you're still quite in the thick of it, as we all are in marriage. I don't know if it gets Gets to a point where it's smooth sailing, you know.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to your faith, what have you noticed is maybe different about you and the way you approach, whether that's like your church experience or your Bible reading experience or the way that you relate to God? What do you think is different about you because of your ADHD?
Yeah. Um, I would say that it's more of a tangible faith. Like, that's really why I love going out, being out in nature. Like, okay, I'm out in your creation, God. What do you have for me? Like, what lessons do you have for me to learn? So a lot of the lessons that I do for the kids are also lessons for me too, because sitting down and reading for me is painful.
Mm,
It is really painful. And I've struggled with reading my whole life. Now I can sit there and read little bits here and there, but comprehension has been a challenge. And there's all these analogies and metaphors and all this stuff in the Bible that I've not ever fully grasped. So I will listen to sermons at like 1.5 or 2.0 speed on YouTube so I can pay attention. But I have to have things explained to me.
mm,
Reading it for myself has been hard. I
mm,
need somebody to break it down so that my brain can really comprehend. And also just dealing with the mindset. And in the last few years, I've just had to come to the end of like, I cannot fix everything. I know that there's challenges that need to be corrected, but at the same time, I cannot fix it. So my prayer has changed from like, why, God, why, to, okay, God, I know that I can't do this by myself. So God, just fix it.
So your dependence on him has changed. Hmm.
Yes.
Moving
It's
from
more of like,
self-dependence.
yes,
Hmm.
less about self, more about, okay, I've got to learn to let it be. Some things aren't going to be. They're just not going to be what I want them to be. And letting that go, letting those expectations go has been really challenging. It's been a hard faith walk, especially within this last year since I've been doing ministry, since I've been doing nonprofit work and adding all of the classes that I run and then the coaching and just like, why isn't this working, God? Or why isn't this coming together? You know, there's a lot of that self doubt and questioning. Am I supposed to be doing this? Do you want me to be doing this? Like, show me what you want me to be doing because I don't want to do this if this isn't what you want for me. If it's not flowing, though, we also have to remember like, well, the enemy's trying to take you down too. So part of it is having that perseverance to get past the darts coming after you.
Hmm. Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to figure out if is that an attack or is that God directing me elsewhere?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, exactly.
I just wanted to jump in a little bit to there may be people listening because of the title of the episode or you knew the topic where you're really looking for answers of like, am I a grown woman with ADHD and I never knew it? And there's a lot out there on social media and on the internet where you can kind of figure out like maybe some of these tendencies show that you have ADHD. But what should people do if they like really want to have like a genuine diagnosis? And so I know you said it's your behavioral analyst friend that kind of said, this is the diagnosis that I think you have. And then you did more research and you're like, yeah, that seems really accurate.
Yeah,
But if somebody needs to like have a diagnosis in order to get medication or to get some kind of
yeah,
support, there are some steps you can take. One is you can talk to your primary doctor. Some, like as I said at the beginning, sometimes doctors don't believe that this can be diagnosed in adulthood, and especially with women because we tend to fly under the radar with inattention and with how hard we work just to keep up appearances. You know? And so if you talk to your primary doctor first and they don't really believe it or they don't think that they can help you, you can always go see a therapist like me. And so if you see a therapist, I'm a marriage and family therapist, but anybody with like a master's level therapy license, uh, we will be able to say, okay, based on the DSM criteria, these are all the criteria that you meet. And we may give you some questionnaires to help you figure out if this is you. And then we can say, yeah, for all intents and purposes, this is what it looks like. It looks like an ADHD diagnosis. but a master's level therapist cannot prescribe you medication
No.
and cannot fill out any kind of disability paperwork or give like an official diagnosis. For that, you actually need to see a psychologist. So this is somebody with a doctor in their name, with a PhD or a PsyD after their name, or an MD, so that they can give you a battery of tests where they're going to test your attention span and some other abilities that you have. And then they're going to give you that official diagnosis. And then at that point, now you have the piece of paper that says you're officially in the ADHD club and you can have meds or you can do what you want to do. But for most of us, for people like people in my family, people in Tiffany's family, we didn't necessarily need to go through all of those steps because we had enough information with just kind of looking at the symptoms, looking at our lives, being able to tell what was going on to know, okay, what's my next step? My next step is I have to figure out the workarounds. And
Mhm.
that's what Tiffany's been talking about this whole
Yeah.
time. Like, I can see where it's good, I can see where it limits me. And for the areas that it limits me, I got to figure out some new solutions.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because getting to the psychologist, it can still take a very long time to get a diagnosis. And looking in the forums and looking at the different postings and groups and things, I've seen so many times that people were just. It still took me 6 months to get a diagnosis. It still took me a year. They wouldn't listen to me. So there's still a lot of that where they're almost saying, "Oh, well, you don't have it because you still do X, Y, and Z." It's like, no, that is not it. I know for a fact that this is my problem. So therefore, getting the medication does make it more challenging.
Mhm. Yeah. But there's a lot of things that you can do to start
Yes.
helping yourself. It's like any kind of difference that you have, you don't want to rely on that. Like I had someone in my office today who's like, I don't want my spouse to just think this is my crutch, oh, it's because of my ADHD. And I'm just going to say, well, no, it kind of explains things, but it doesn't excuse things. So we still
Yeah.
take responsibility for how we act in our families, how we act at our jobs, how we get things done.
Yeah.
We take responsibility and we find little workarounds. Like maybe you have 12 different alarms on your phone to remind
I
you
do.
things. Maybe you have post-its all over your house. Like there's different things that we can do that help, including what you eat, how much you sleep, your social activities, all of those things is a whole lifestyle of support. And so I'd love to be able to help people more understanding that. So I just want to thank you, Tiffany, for sharing your experience today, as I know you're still figuring everything out, but I just wanted to bring you on here so that people feel like, oh, there's somebody like me out there, and you can still do the things that you're doing. You're figuring it out as you're going, and you're going to be okay. Right?
Yes, yes. That has been my biggest thing now is I do have a YouTube channel where I'm talking about ADHD and business and just bringing other neurodivergent on to share about how they're still operating and workarounds that they've done. And, because a lot of times it does end up feeling like I'm a second rate citizen or I've got all these issues or challenges, so I can't do all of the other things because I struggle so much. And it's like, no, you just have to find the tools that you need, put the systems in place, and move about your business. You can still do what you need to do. It's just a part of you that is different.
Okay. Well, where can people find your YouTube channel? I mean, obviously on YouTube, but can you say the name of it and
Yeah.
like other work that you're doing that people can find?
Yes. So my YouTube is Walk with Tiffany Hernandez.
Okay.
And I'm on there interviewing. I working on posting more frequently, but that is also one of those ADHD things that I'm like, I'm trying to be as consistent as I possibly can. And then the other is my podcast, and there's plenty of content on there that they can find. And that's the Ultimate Homeschool Community Podcast. And we share how families can get support, services, providers, and also learn how to be their own educational entrepreneur.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to link those in the show notes. Obviously, we didn't talk a ton about homeschooling today, but there's probably some homeschooling mamas out there that want to get the kind of support that you're offering. So we're going to put those links in there. Check out the YouTube channel and the podcast. And I'm going to ask you our last question. Tiffany, what are you doing for soul care?
Yes. So soul care has been quite challenging. I think other than, making sure that I'm taking that time to spend with God, but also taking the time to really look at the bigger picture and see that I don't have to have everything done the next day, and spending that quality time with my family, making sure that I'm including them in what I'm doing, because it's all for them anyways. It's all for us to be together, relationship wise. And making sure that even though like I don't do a lot of reading, I do try to get some in, because I know that those words, they're powerful. God's word is everything for us. And being able to hang my hat on a few scriptures, if I know a few scriptures, that's enough for me to be able to make it through those challenging times.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your story and your struggles and everything that you're accomplishing now. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me, Anne. It's been a pleasure.
The Soul Grit podcast is a production of Soul Grit Resources. You can find more at soulgritresources.com or on the socials at Soul Grit Resources. You can email me at info@soulgritresources.com.